house in Baltimore. If you're a Caps or a Wizards fan, as they leave the Verizon Center, and the Maryland Terps bring their 3 seed into the Verizon Center. They'll be the last team to play on Friday night. Don Marcus has covered all things Terps for a very, very long time, and this week it kind of comes full circle, Don. Of course, at the Baltimore Sun, you can also follow his journey at Sports Prof 56, as well as being a good teacher of all things journalism. We'll get to that at the end of our broadcast. But, Don, the ACC Big Ten thing that you wrote about in the beginning, during the process, it kind of comes full circle this week when Washington, D.C. is going to be overtaken by the Big Ten. This thing sort of blossoms this week right along with the cherry blossoms, I think, right?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. That's a good way to put it. Hopefully, for Maryland's sake, they'll have a little more success than they did the last time the ACC tournament was here. I think that was a first-round exit with the whole Gilchrist blow-up. But
same thing with, by the way, the Capitol Center in '87 too, which I've been talking about all week and remembering very fondly. You know, the old ACC tournament where you couldn't get tickets and they had those little postage stamp books. It's a different world now, but certainly a different kind of tournament this week.
Well, I think tickets are a lot more readily available, given that it's different for the Big Ten to come east, and we'll see how if it's a success, maybe they'll do it again. If it's not, this could be it for a while. But no, I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Maryland gets, I guess, past Northwestern or Ohio State. I guess that's the expected matchup on Friday night. Then then they play in the weekend. And once you get to the weekend, you have a relatively home team there. It really sort of turns in the favor of that team, though last year Purdue did not take advantage of that. They lost in Indianapolis, so it's not a guarantee, but it should be a pretty good indication of where Maryland fans are with this team, depending on how they show up.
Well, and then part of this is also which teams are going to show up, right? I mean, we've seen plenty of these tournaments where teams that are already in, and Maryland's sort of one of those teams right now, along with Wisconsin, Minnesota, Purdue. They're going to get their name on the dance card on Sunday. Then, do you really want to play 3 games in the week? And I know that's sort of a crass way to look at it. I know all the coaches and the players that say, of course we want to win the tournament. There are teams that want to win the tournament. Then there's teams that need to win the tournament. Maybe Iowa, Michigan State, Northwestern, Michigan, Illinois, all those teams are going to create, I think, a stir on Friday because there's more desperation on their part.
No, I agree with that. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting tournament. I think that, you can look at the parity at the Big Ten 2 ways, that there are a lot of average to slightly above average teams, or there are a lot of average to below average teams. I don't think anybody says about the Big Ten. If you look at the Big Ten teams, I'm not sure anybody, will say there's a Final Four team that's, standing out. Purdue might have the most balance, but, I'm not looking at them as a Final Four team. So I'm not looking at Maryland as a Final Four team, or Wisconsin, or Minnesota, or, I think there are a number of good teams, but there's also a balance because it's not a great league this year. A year from now, it may be different. There are a lot of young teams in the Big Ten, a lot of young talent in the Big Ten, and you sort of saw that the second half of the year. Maryland's young talent showed up the first half of the year. They struggled a little bit second half, where other teams like Iowa, which beat Maryland a couple of weeks ago with a couple of freshmen, and some of the other teams really played well down the stretch. So we'll see. It should make for a very interesting weekend.
Don, you stood in judgment of this for a long, long time with Maryland and how they do and where they are. This is a pretty good year already, right? And I don't know. Look, it'll be an ugly year if somehow they draw a 6 seed and go to Buffalo and lose or something next Thursday. It would not be a good year at that point. But where they stand as a 3 seed in a year where many pundits had them as the 10th best team in the conference, losing the players they lost last year, sort of the disappointment of only only getting to the 16 last year when they clearly had, exemplary talent, more talent than they have this year. This youth group and you watching all these games and seeing this thing build through, there is certainly in that Melo Trimble shot on Saturday against Michigan State begins that hope again that maybe the Iowa and the Wisconsin, that bad week they had at home, Minnesota a couple of weeks ago, can get washed out. I think a lot of this is going to be matchup based. They don't match up well with big teams inside, and that's not going to change over the next couple of weeks. They're going to need some good fortune here over the next couple of weeks in order to be playing basketball 2 weeks from now.
No, I definitely agree with that. In fact, that's one of the things I'm writing for tomorrow about comparing the two teams, this year's team and last year's team. And one of the weaknesses of this team, especially with Tchaikovsky out, is that they do not match up with big, strong teams. And that could be a problem depending on the matchup they face. In Washington, they could avoid that unless they run into Purdue in the finals. If they play Wisconsin, if they play Northwestern or even Ohio State, those are more finesse teams, as Maryland is. And Purdue and maybe a little bit of Minnesota, because they have some big guards as well, are more power teams. So I think that's the one thing that I question, whether they could match up with a big, strong team either this weekend or in the NCAA tournament.
He is Don Marcus. You can follow his journey out at the Baltimore Sun, of course, many, many years chronicling all things Terps. You can also find him at Sports Prof, PROF 56, as he has been a long-term sports journalism professor as well. I've participated in some of his dealings, even from the Super Bowl earlier this month. For Melo and for watching this thing 2 years ago and thinking he might not have made it to his sophomore year, now that we're getting toward the end of his junior year, I know there was an emotional scene at Xfinity over the weekend in the Michigan State game with his mom. Do you think he's done, or do you see him as being a guy who is potentially going to earn a senior season here, or just go into the draft and be whatever he'll be, which I've been told is a second-round draft pick right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that if he, I'm not quite. I don't know where it's going to go, because I don't think he wants to go through what he went through last year. I think for Melo, he's going to have to decide almost immediately. I don't think he can declare go to the combine without declaring, because then there's some uncertainty. And then last year he was dealing with trying to keep up with his schoolwork, taking final exams. And I think he realized he couldn't do both. And I don't think it's good for him either way. If he wants to impress the scouts, I don't think he should be worried about some final exam. And if he wants to make sure he's eligible for next year, I don't think he should be worried about the combine. So I think that's going to be the big issue. I think he's going to have to make a decision pretty quickly after the season's over which way he's going to go, because I think he's going to have to, if he decides that he's going to leave, then he's going to have to be in a heavy-duty training, which he didn't do last year, partly because of his injury, partly because of time constraints. So I think he's going to have to do it differently this year. I think a lot will depend on how they do in the tournament. I actually think the further they go, the better chance he has of coming back, because then Maryland can sell him on the fact that, listen, we got to the Sweet 16 with the team we have coming back. We could get to the finals. We could win it all, and that might be enticing. If they lose in the first round, which it's certainly a possibility, it might be a harder sell to say to him, hey, listen, we're close. So, I don't think it's, I think he wants to go to the NBA. I think that's always been in his mindset. I think I agree with you with your assessment that at best he's a second-round pick. This year is going to be a lot of point guards, and the more point guards and the more foreign players, as Diamond Stone found out by getting himself pushed to the second round, it could push Melo out of the draft completely. And then where is he? He's trying to make a team in a camp and then go into the D League. And Tom Izzo in his very honest way alluded to it on Saturday, saying that Melo was great. It was great for him to come back because he could be playing in the D League right now. And it was very honest. But Denzel Valentine was playing in the D League this year as well, and as a more finished, polished player. So I think that there's a lot of decisions to be made. I don't think his family is pushing him out the door, as some kids have situations like that. So I think it's really up to Melo what he wants to do. I know he really likes playing with this group. I think they're going to be a better team next year. I think they're going to be more. There's going to be more pieces. They're bringing in this kid Bruno Fernando. They're bringing in Morsel from Baltimore. So I think it's going to be a loaded team, and it's going to be loaded, I think, without Melo, but it'll even be more loaded with Melo.
Well, in the case of Melo, I mean, hasn't the body of work this year said that he's a second-round draft? You know what I mean? I don't know that there's anything else to be said other than you had 30 games to play this year, and it was a choppy endeavor. I mean, I still love him as a player. I'm glad he's a Terp. I think he'll hit a big shot at some point, win a game again like he did over the weekend. But from the NBA perspective, from the real-world perspective, the options become more limited when you don't stand out, because he didn't stand out this year in the way that I think many folks hoped that he would have, right?
Well, I think the biggest question is his shooting. He definitely has a penchant for hitting big shots. He definitely has ability to hit big shots, but he is a pretty streaky shooter. And he's not even the form on the shot the other day, I was looking at a picture of it. He wasn't square to the basket. He was sort of, because he was running, he was trying to get up court. His feet were sort of splayed, shot went up, and fortunately, and he took, that was that was an NBA three he took. So he definitely has the range, where some guys don't even have that. But I just think that they want to see, NBA scouts want to see a more consistent shooter, not only who can run the screen and roll, pick and roll, and get the ball to big guys or to shooters on the wing, but they also want to see a guy who can knock down shots, as they do in the NBA with an unbelievable accuracy, and I'm not sure he's quite there yet.
Don Marcus joining us here from the Baltimore Sun, of course, longtime Terp scribe, and covering all things Turtles this weekend as the Big Ten tournament takes over D.C. You can follow his journey at Sports Prof 56 as well as out on the sports pages of the Baltimore Sun. Rest of these teams in the tournament this weekend, and we talk about sort of bubble teams, and Indiana and the situation there with Green. This is kind of bordering on ugly, right? I mean, the coaches are getting fired. We've already started to see that early in the week at Missouri and some other places. Some thoughts about sort of upheaval in some of the bottom places in the Big Ten where there were major disappointments this year.
Well, Crean is an interesting situation because if they keep him on, if they don't keep him on and fire him right after the season, they owe him $4 million. He has a $1 million buyout July 1. When that's way too late to hire a coach, so they're going to have to decide whether or not they want to shell out $4 million and find a new coach, and who would they get who could do a better job. I mean, he has won 2 Big Ten championships in the last 5 years. It's been a very bumpy ride the last few years, but I think that realistically, are they going to do better than Tom Crean right now? I mean, Indiana has an unbelievable track record. Obviously with Bobby Knight there for all those years. But, that's the way college basketball used to be. That's not the way college basketball is now. And, I don't know if that's, maybe they just say, hey, we're not going to give you an extension, or I don't know. I guess his contract must be up pretty soon, and maybe that may be tough for him to recruit. Maybe they just make it a business decision, or maybe they just give him tack a year on or whatever to say, okay, we'll give you a couple of years to turn this thing back around. But I think that's a pretty, that's a very fluid situation. As far as the others, John Gross at Illinois was on the hot seat, was on his way out about 3 weeks ago, and all of a sudden Illinois started winning some games and beat some pretty good teams. So, all of a sudden his situation's changed a little bit. And Tim Miles going out on senior night with a 20-plus point loss to Michigan, an unbelievably hot Michigan team. But still, that thing, they start off 3-0 for the first time, and they're, right near the bottom, going into the Big Ten tournament. So I think that situation is pretty the one thing there is, unlike Maryland, which is clearly a basketball school, Nebraska is clearly a football school, and maybe he'll survive because of that.
Well, they certainly had the best start of anyone in the conference, and certainly awakened everyone back in right around the turn of the year. Don Marcus joining us here at Big Ten Tournament. All right, so, in the big picture, what are you expecting out of Maryland here, right? When Sunday comes, expecting, 5 seed, 6 seed, expecting them to stay somewhere East Coast but not too close? I mean, they could wind up in any number of places, right?
Yeah, as far as the seed, right now I think they're probably they went back into the top 25, not to say that has anything to do with it. I would say they're probably a 6 seed right now. If they lose early in the tournament, they probably could drop down to a 7 if they go, if they make it to the semifinals, or if they make it to the final, maybe they move it up to a 5. If they win it, I think they definitely would be a 5. But that's about, and I think that's a pretty good, given the fact that they've started 3 freshmen the whole year, basically. I think that's a pretty good record, pretty good seed. And as far as where they could go, I'm hoping after going to Spokane last year, which was really nice, but really far, and it took a long time. I'm hoping for Greenville, South Carolina, Indianapolis, or my number one choice, which I never get, would be Orlando. My son lives there, but and there's I think CBS Sportsline has them down there playing with the possibility of playing Florida State in the second round, and that would certainly be a pretty good draw, I think, down there, and certainly appealing to Maryland fans for somewhere to go.
Well, the 8 places are Buffalo, Milwaukee, Orlando, Salt Lake City, Greenville, Indianapolis, Tulsa, Oklahoma, which, by the way, is a beautiful gym. If you get a chance to go there, I saw Rush play there last year.
I've actually played ball in that gym.
The Bach.
During I played ball at Tulsa's gym.
Okay.
I don't know if that's where they play the game.
No, they have this beautiful shiny glass thing that the oil money's built down the street that lures bands and
okay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and so if you get a chance to go there, I got a breakfast recommendation in Tulsa.
Okay.
You won't starve if you go there. But Sacramento's the other place. So none of these places are Philadelphia or a drive away. I mean, the following week they could be in New York if they draw the East Regional. But I guess for Maryland fans to think about next weekend and where they're going to be, it's going to be an airplane ride, unless I guess it's Buffalo at this point, right?
Right, or if you like taking rides down to Greenville, South Carolina is drivable.
You can go to south of the border.
Right, that's right. But I've made that drive a lot because my son went to the University of South Carolina. So I will, wherever I will be going, I will be flying.
Well, as long as Maryland's going, right? I mean, we don't have to worry about that. And certainly a loss to Michigan State on Saturday. That shot by Mello has at least bought them some breathing space this week to not have to win on Friday night.
Yeah, and also I think it really they actually have a pretty good draw possibility in terms of the matchups. We were talking before about big teams or teams that they match up well with. I think if you're Maryland, you want another shot at Wisconsin, especially, in what situation since they played them on the road this year, and then who knows who's going to if Maryland gets to the final, who knows if Purdue if it's going to be a chalk thing and Purdue's going to be there at the end, or it could be somebody else. So and getting back to the 3 games in 3 days thing. I think that it will, I think Mark will take, given the fact that, it will be one more step that they haven't been. Since they've only been in the to the semifinals in the Big Ten. It would be one more step for this team to take.
Big weekend down in D.C. Terps will play the late game right around 9 o'clock on Friday night. Don Marcus will be there covering things for the Sun. Luke Jones and I will be there for WNST. Of course, we'll be out on Twitter, and it'll be a very, very active couple of days in D.C. as the Michigans and the Illinois get going early Thursday and the playing games on Wednesday night. Double bye. I kind of like it. Don, I'll see you down at the gym on Friday. I always appreciate the time coming on. We'll send everybody out to Twitter and out to the Baltimore Sun to follow along, and I hope wherever they wind up on the brackets on Sunday, you get a good meal and a good night's rest out of it.
All right, thanks, Nestor. We'll see you down there.
Great having you on. Don Marcus joining us here. He is Sports Prof 56 out on Twitter as well as at the Baltimore Sun. You can find me out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you are. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. It is $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there, and the bikini season's right around the corner. If there's any breaking news this week, and I know we're going to have breaking news from the Ravens on free agency, obviously the free agency period opening up, the tampering, the non-tampering, the pre-tampering, the dirty tampering, all the tampering will be happening this week in the NFL as well. If there's any breaking news out of spring training down in Sarasota with the Orioles, you'll get that first. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, our WNST tech service, readily available. Sign up online now. You'll be happy you did. Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5 as well. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We're on Facebook Live as well as streaming on our YouTube WNSTV channel. About to enhance that to Periscope soon and Twitter as well. You can also find us out on Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere the internet is served. And Nasty at WNST.net always finds me. Like Mr. Angelos, I'm a very available individual. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.